This is an interview with Florence Backus, who was a descendant of the Selway family, one of the original families in the Beaverhead. When did the Selways decide to come to Montana, or why?
When Grandfather Selway went to England and passed away there, they decided, Grandmother Selway decided to bring her family here to Montana, where Uncle Jim Selway already had a home for them.
What was Mrs. Selway's name?
Eliza Maitland Selway. The English name, you mean?
Right. Yes. I think that's interesting.
Yeah. They were, all of the family of the Selways were born in England, with the exception of my mother, Anna Selway.
Who all came in the Selway train?
Well, when they came to the United States, they went to Racine, Wisconsin, where they had other English friends. And from there, Grandma Selway brought her 3 remaining sons, John and Thomas and Robert, and her daughters, 3 of them, Sarah, who was married to Philip Thorne, and Adria, who was married to William Davis, and Annie is the family all called her. Her name was Anne. Was single at that time. She was 16 years old when they decided to come to Montana, where Uncle Jim already had his home for them. Down north of Dillon, where the river bridge, about where the river bridge is now, and the old home has been there many years, the old log house, used as a harness shop in the days when I used to play down there. And later, Jim Selway built a home that you could see in all of the magazines, or I shouldn't say magazines, in the old, what do you call them, pamphlets, or...
Yeah, history books like this over.
Yes.
How was the trip when they came out on the wagon train? First of all, how big was the train, and can you tell me anything about the trip?
Well, there was as I remember, there was the Selway part of the train made up of, I don't know how many wagons, but they called it the Selway part. And they, somewhere along, I don't know just where, I don't remember, they joined up with the other wagons until they had a very large train crossing the mountains, crossing the plains, they called it. And
how long were they on their trip?
it took them 3 months from Wisconsin to Beaverhead Valley, where they had their home. And somewhere along on that trip, the Indians began following. They could see them all around the mountains. They knew they were following them. And when night came upon, they made circles where they put their cattle in their wagons, and they took the things out of the wagons and barricaded it on the inside of the circle for sort of a fort, because they expected Indians to attack them. And after they had their fort made, and they were getting the men were watering their horses. One man who had a very fine team was just ahead of a corral when they went down to the creek to water, and he was shot by the Indians. His team was taken so quickly that nobody at the camp knew anything about it, and the Indians all disappeared. And then
What happened when the Indians rode away?
they all went over to get their supper, and Grandma Selway discovered that they had no salt, and she sent my mother back to the wagon for salt. And while she was up there, the Indians began to ride around in a circle of wagons again, and shouting and screaming, and Mama just laid down in the wagon and kept real still, but she had a little peek hole where she could see what was going on. And when Uncle Thorpe had given orders not to shoot as long as the Indians didn't shoot, and so no shots were fired. And finally, after frightening the white people very much, the Indians rode away. And Mama got the salt and went back, and they had their supper that night.
And did they ever have any more trouble with the Indians?
And no more trouble with the Indians. They had taken the horses that they wanted.
Right.
And that was all they did want. They didn't bother any of the other wagons. They wanted that team. And that's what they've been after all day.
Well, that's interesting. Yes, they got the Indians, all right. Now, where did these groups of people go? Presumably they split up, the main wagon train split up, and part of the train came up into this part of the country. And where did they go?
As I remember Mother telling me, they went, it was at Three Forks, and but other wagons had taken off of the big train, and part of the wagons went off towards Cardwell. I think there's a road over that way that leads off. Anyway, the Selway wagons all came into the Beaverhead, and they were very glad at the end of 3 months to get to a home.
I can well imagine that they would be. When was it that the Selways came to Montana, a big group of Selways?
Well, as far as I can remember, it was sometime in October of 1864.
Who was your father?
He was Virginia Carter.
And where was he from?
He was from Parkland, Ohio.
And what caused him to come out here? First of all, when did he come?
Well, he and a young friend of his, they decided they wanted to come west and see what the gold was laying in the streets, as they'd been hearing. And so they started out. But the rest of the story of their travel till they got to Virginia City, I can't remember about it. Just give it to that. That's where I can.
Oh, when did they get to Virginia City?
Well, in the fall, I think it was October of 64.
Okay, and what did they do after they got
And they went, they had 75 cents between them. And the next morning they went to work for the man they called the Big Boss. And they planned going for him. I don't know how long, until they had saved enough money to go to Corinne and buy a freighting out that they wanted to freight. So the two young fellows went to Corinne and bought themselves 2 wagons, 4 horses, and a saddle horse, and things to bring back to Virginia City.
What happened to them on their trip up to Virginia City?
Well, they had one rather frightening experience. And my father rode on ahead to find the road where they could go or where they could camp at night. And he was way out ahead of Uncle Bush with the freight teams. And 4 men rode out from behind a hill and stopped him. Wanted to know all about where he was going, what he was doing, and decided that the best thing to do was just tell him the gospel truth, and he told them everything about their wagons, the horses, what they had, where they were going to Virginia City, and there was just the 2 of them with their freight team, and so they rode on and left him, and he became quite worried after they go back to Uncle Bush with these wagons. So Uncle drove around got behind the hill so we could see Bush coming, and said no sign of him then. So they went on into Virginia City without anything happening to them. And in Virginia City, a couple of days later, they heard that this terrible massacre, you might call, on a big freight outfit was behind them. They heard these 4 men had killed everybody, taken everything, and burned a good deal of their wagons and everything, and they tried to lay it on to the Indians and make it look like Indians had done it, but they were known as these road agents that were on the road. So it was left that way that they were the road agents that did it. And I guess the road agents had to pay their bills.
Eventually they did.
That was the end of that as far as I know.
Did anything else ever happen to your father in his freighting days?
No, his freighting days, nothing happened. They just did it until Uncle Bush decided he wanted to go back to Ohio, so Papa quit and decided he'd be a farmer.
Fine, good thing. What did they call your father and Uncle Bush?
The Willowickia boys, because they had, where they stopped down on a Carter Creek, there was a fine spring, and they had made Willowickia